Welcome, everyone. We are going to get underway shortly, recognizing we have a busy and exciting day. So for those who can hear me way in the back, cease your schmoozing and find a seat while one exists. Well, thanks again for joining us at the Water Pavilion here at the Global Climate Action Summit. It's obviously a busy and exciting week here in San Francisco, and we appreciate you spending time with us here today and tomorrow at the Water Pavilion. We have a couple hundred people who are able to join us in person, who we are excited to be here at Autodesk with, and we have a whole lot more joining us on live web stream. So for those who couldn't join us in person but are joining us over the internet, we welcome you too. My name is Crowfoot, and I have the pleasure of serving as your MC of day one of this Water Pavilion. I lead the Water Foundation, which is a group that supports leaders and groups in the American West working to ensure reliable, clean water for both people and nature. Water Foundation is one of many groups that helped put this together, both by organizing it and funding it. So if we can just have a quick round of applause for those people who actually did the work to put this together. I'll spend just a moment providing a little context for the day in this Water Pavilion, and then we'll be off and running in an exciting program. So this is obviously one of many affiliate events for the Global Climate Action Summit, which is bringing thousands of leaders from across the world to San Francisco to redouble actions on climate change. And this Water Pavilion, from my perspective, is particularly important because it reflects and recognizes just how central and critical water is as a dimension to climate change. The saying goes, if climate change is the shark, water is the teeth, meaning a lot of us across the world are experiencing the impacts of climate change through changing water cycles, including challenges and crises. Consider flooding in Laos this year, or day zero in the water shortage in Cape Town, Africa. Across the globe, climate change is driving more extreme weather events, and those weather events, be it flooding or drought, are changing our lives and impacting people across the world, particularly the most vulnerable populations that are not in a place to be that resilient. Closer to where we sit in California today, we've had catastrophic flooding across the country. Our thoughts are with those in the Carolinas as Hurricane Florence bears down. We are amidst a 20-year shortage in the mighty Colorado River Basin. And in California, just 200 miles to the east, we still have poor rural communities that are receiving emergency bottled water because their wells ran dry during the drought over 2 years ago, and they still do not have a reliable source of water. So we're feeling this across the world and in the place where we now convene. And I think this water table, or water pavilion I should say, is reflective of a growing recognition that we have to build climate resilience into climate action. If you all have worked in climate change for a long time, you know there's been this sort of bifurcation between climate mitigation, that is reducing greenhouse gas pollution, and then climate adaptation. And a lot of the focus moves towards reducing greenhouse gas emissions, which is obviously critical because if we're actually going to secure a healthy planet for future generations, we have to get greenhouse gas emissions down. But climate change is here. We're experiencing it. And we can no longer have so-called climate adaptation as a second fiddle or the back burner issue. We have to integrate building climate resilience into climate action. And as I'm observing it this week, this change is being made, where leaders around the world are recognizing that they should have plans to reduce emissions, but those plans should be integrated with building resilience in water and land and in other areas. So that's what we're talking about today here at the Water Pavilion. Really both the challenges that climate change presents on water, but also importantly the opportunities and where solutions are being found across the world. So we have a great 2 days planned for you. We will be here at Autodesk until 4 p.m. today, and then across the Embarcadero at the Exploratorium for the second day. There will be plenty of breaks to meet and talk with fellow colleagues. If anybody needs the bathroom, they are right next to the registration table, and people should come and go as they need to. Please do silence your cell phones to minimize distractions, and again, welcome to an exciting day. It's my pleasure first to introduce two women who lead California's water efforts on building resilience in our state on all things water, and they are Felicia Marcus and Karla Nemeth. So I'd invite them to join us. And I actually think they are in the room right next to me, so somebody needs to go grab them. Thank you. A volunteer. And I would also say that throughout the day, I'll introduce people simply by their names and affiliations. If you haven't already, you should download the app on your phone that gives more background on each speaker. So without further ado, Felicia and Karla, welcome.
Supposed to do this Emmy style, I was told. Well, good morning. My name is Karla Nemeth, and I am delighted to be here today to welcome you all to San Francisco, California, and the Global Climate Action Summit, and the very important role that water plays in supporting not just the human species, but our ecosystems and our cultural values. I want to just say a little bit about the Department of Water Resources and our perspectives here in California, and how we plan to be successful in meeting the challenges that climate change is bringing upon us. It's no secret that our droughts are intensifying. Our periods of precipitation are far more intense than we've been accustomed to. And that has a ripple effect on all sorts of our systems here in California. The Department of Water Resources provides water supplies to 27 million Californians, and the department supports billions of dollars in local investment in water supplies. We also manage floodwaters in California, and the best ways to protect our communities, farms, and people from flood danger. And that puts the department in a really unique, I think, and fortunate position to do what I think we all have a sense is necessary, and that is far better integration of our flood protection systems with our water supply and water quality systems. One of the things that's going to be a challenge for the department is breaking down some of our internal silos that we've developed over time. We're a highly engineered group of individuals, and that's great. It's great. But when we start to pivot towards a new future that generates risk, and an unacceptable risk to our communities, our livelihoods, and our ecosystems, by doing business as usual, it's really motivating people to change at the department and work across more traditional boundaries of flood planning and water supply planning. I should also say that the department is becoming more of a leader in science and the application of science and water resources management and how it supports our ecosystems. It's going to be critical for the water community in California and beyond to embrace that kind of, embrace those disciplines and integrate them into how we rehabilitate all of our aging infrastructure so that it can manage both the climate challenges, but also the very real, the reality that many of our ecosystems with climate are going to be equally stressed, and the way that we design and construct and operate our facilities to be more flexible can provide real benefit to helping our important ecosystems survive these new climate conditions. I think finally the key to our success is going to be absolutely embracing partnerships, embracing at the local level with local governments, but certainly with academic institutions, nonprofit organizations, so that we can build the momentum for the things that we need to do that are going to require a change in our behavior, our water use, our land use, and all kinds of components that are really the underpinning of a water secure system moving forward. And I think I want to just close by thanking you for spending the time here in California, for coming together. It's a real motivator for those of us in the water community, and we look forward to partnering with the international community, partnering here in California to make sure that we have a thriving future in water supply and reliability here in California. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Karla. Did you switch places here? I'm honored to be with you, and I want to thank you all from the bottom of my heart for coming to spend your precious time thinking and talking about our most precious and most undervalued natural resource, which is obviously water. My deepest thanks as well, and I can't begin to express how deep they are, to the organizers and the sponsors for recognizing that water is at the heart of our climate challenge and for making this gathering possible during this important week. You know, it's right that we're here to illuminate the intimate, irrevocable, and irrefutable role of water to the climate challenge facing the world. Water is quite simply the bleeding edge of what climate change will bring, and it's bringing the world as we speak. You know, Governor Brown, it's kind of Governor Brown Week, but it's World Week, but Governor Brown Week, he's been a visionary for decades, always seeing 30 to 50 years in the future. I mean, nearly 40 years ago, he started the energy efficiency revolution that's still revolutionary and remarkable today. In his return engagement, he pretty quickly identified climate change's obvious connection to water for the state. With our already wildly varying hydrology, unpredictable swings between wet and dry years, and with our corresponding reliance on storage in reservoirs, groundwater basins, and our largest source of storage, our snowpack, we're in trouble. He quickly realized that with a few degrees rise in temperature, more of our precipitation would fall as rain rather than snow. That means more flooding in spring, more work for Karla's folks, and less precious snowpack to slowly melt out in the spring and the summer to replenish our reservoirs and surface water at the time that people in agriculture use that precious water the most. Also more work for Karla and her folks. Climate change is going to make our current water challenges seem like a picnic. So he directed the administration, the Agricultural, Environmental, and Resources agencies, to create a comprehensive water action plan. And he asked for it to be an all-of-the-above strategy to adapt in the face of the freight train of pain that climate change is going to bring to the state. So we all set out to lay a foundation for that sustainable water future on every front we could. And that includes conservation and efficiency, first and foremost, as a California way of life. It also means recycling, stormwater capture, integrated water management of all kinds, groundwater management in terms of quantity and quality, storage above and below ground, big and small, dealing with our environmental challenges and the ecosystem ahead of extinction events. The governor's plan included safe drinking water for all Californians, an issue that had led to his signing of our historic human right to water legislation, on which we've made substantial progress, but have a long way to go. We vowed to prepare for droughts and for floods, and on the former, we got overtaken by events. As Californians, we all just faced the worst drought in our recorded history. We got the mother of all wake-up calls of what's to come, and we dare not press the snooze button. We got a taste of more frequent and drier dry years, which will be punctuated with wet and wetter years. We saw hundreds of thousands of productive agricultural acres fallowed, tens of thousands out of jobs, thousands of disadvantaged community members out of water as their shallow wells ran dry, and fish and wildlife hammered by lack of water or water that was just too hot to survive. But we came together as a state, with neighbors helping neighbors, record conservation successes in our urban areas, some by regulation, but much of it through solidarity. Water deliveries by the state in bottles, tankers, or by running pipes and drilling wells. And we made some important strides in progress on groundwater management, long-term water efficiency, recycled water regulation and funding, stormwater capture, and gaining far more timely and equitable data about who's using water, where, and how much, which we didn't really know before. And we made critical strides through historic alliances between agricultural and disadvantaged community leaders on safe drinking water. We've made progress integrating floodplains for flood control and ecological restoration on the ground and in our regulations, but we have a long way to go there, and yet we're the lucky ones because of our relative wealth and the fact that we will still have wet years to replenish our above and below ground storages when others around the world aren't going to be so lucky. The governor used this drought to call on all Californians to come together as one, and we're all in this together became the phrase of the era, the rallying cry. Water's traditionally been very localized, polarized, and parochial. And in the face of climate change, we're all in this together needs to be the norm and the driver and should extend beyond our state's borders to the broader world. We've learned a lot, relied a lot on the work, many of you, from Australia to Israel to Denmark to Cape Town and elsewhere, and we hope we'll have some things to offer many of you as well. But collectively, we absolutely have to work even harder to elevate the conversation about water to the rafters. In the climate world, we've seen some voices rise above the noise, like Peter Glick and many of you in this room. We've seen the water-energy nexus gain traction as the power players in energy recognize the embedded energy in the distribution, treating, and heating of water. But what we need to articulate and popularize is the water-climate nexus, and indeed the water-everything or the water-life nexus, to give this precious resource the precious resource for successful economies and life itself the respect and attention that it truly deserves. So thank you again to the organizers and to all of you as attendees for being here and for the critically important and essential work you do. Some of the leaders across the nation and the world are in this room today. And so let's make this meeting one for the history books because of the connections and the commitments and the conversations we have here today. Thank you again from the bottom of my heart.